Hi everyone. I'm going to be expanding my Patreon content to include tarot reading and oracle card reading tutorials, as well as other content related to symbol interpretation, for example, dream interpretation or symbolism in movies. So I'm already discussing movie symbolism in some of my content, but I'm going to be going into further depth on this on both my YouTube channel as well as my Patreon. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, or if you want to learn more, just follow me on YouTube or Patreon, and let's get started. So the first topic that we are going to cover is the question of whether you have to be psychic in order to read tarot or oracle cards. And so the way that I would answer that question is to talk about psychic insight as being on a spectrum, where at one of the end of the spectrum, we would have basic intuition, which is easily accessible to everyone, let's just say. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we would have very sensitive perception, such as clairvoyance or mediumship. So in terms of how well we can attune our intuition using tarot or other forms of symbol interpretation and self-reflection, it's something that you don't need to have any special talent in order to do. Let's just put it that way. You can learn the actual techniques and the meanings of the cards, and you can use them for self-reflection, and this will over time help to improve your ability to rely on your intuition, because you're actually practicing listening to yourself. And the more you listen to yourself and the more that you validate yourself, the more that yourself feels free to share information that can help you. So another way to look at it is like learning a language. So when we as infants learn our native language, our mouths and our tongues get accustomed to forming certain patterns of speech and certain accents, if you will, that help us to sound like a native speaker. And then if we later on in life decide to learn a second language, the second language might not come naturally to us because our tongues and our mouths might not be used to forming certain positions, and so that when we speak in a second language, we might have a noticeable accent. And it's kind of like that with our psychic muscle. If for such a long time we've grown accustomed to using our psychic muscle in a certain way, then we might assume that that's the only way our psychic muscle can ever be used. But in reality, we can, with practice, learn how to expand our psychic muscle so that it can receive more insight than we were accustomed to receiving previously. And so I am basing this on my own experience of having spent most of my life not very well attuned to my own intuition, and then having reached a point where through healing and meditation I was able to trust my intuition, and it began opening the floodgates of more greater and greater psychic insight. So this experience is open to those who are interested in expanding their psychic language. So another spectrum that I want to talk about is what you might call the association spectrum, which has to do with your ability to associate one concept to another, or to jump from one concept to another. So at the milder end of the spectrum, let's call it, this is where your ability to read tarot and to interpret dreams and so on is going to begin to flourish, because you are making connections in your mind based on what you're seeing and hearing, and in your environment as well as in your tarot readings. So at the more sensitive end of the spectrum, we would see a schizophrenic extreme, where, and schizophrenics are known to exhibit a certain type of mental flexibility, where they call it loose association and they call it tangential speech. And what this basically means is that the schizophrenic mind can very easily jump off onto a tangent and go in any direction without the observer necessarily understanding the connections that were being made, and so that it appears very random and chaotic, while in the schizophrenic person's mind there may be a clear connection. So this can be interpreted as a form of metaphorical speech. For example, a schizophrenic person might say, I don't have my car. And in reality, they might not have a car. They might be describing a car metaphorically. A car might mean something to them. It might represent a memory from childhood. There are a lot of possibilities, and what we're moving toward is the more gaining a greater flexibility in this type of skill, so that we can draw connections more readily between what we're seeing on the cards or in our dreams or in a movie, for example, versus what we're seeing in our actual life and how it applies. Now, some people can do this very naturally, and a lot of people enjoy watching movies and can easily go, oh wow, that reminds me of the time that I went through this experience, and can easily see the parallels. That's why fairy tales are so emotionally resonant, and allegories are so powerful, because it's easy for us to see the connections. But when we see a symbol by itself on a tarot card, it might not necessarily inspire anything specific without a context to go with it. So that's what we're going to be learning over the course of these tutorials, is what the traditional meanings of each card represent, and then how to apply that into the context of our own lives, and whatever emotional unresolved issues might be coming to the surface for our conscious mind to process. So to get started, let's just talk a minute about the ritual of reading tarot or oracle cards. It is very helpful to establish a ritual surrounding one's reading practice. And there are a number of reasons for this. One being that certain parts of the ritual, for example, holding a grounding stone, which could be a crystal, or it could be even like a rock you found at the beach. I mean, different objects might have different meanings to various people, but the idea behind it being that it is connecting us to the earth energy. And so both in a tactile sense, because we can feel the sensation of it against our skin, but also in an energetic sense, it is connecting us to the earth. So that can be part of our ritual, connecting, grounding through a stone or a crystal. There's also vibration rituals we might encompass in our tarot reading practice, such as singing bowls or tuning forks, or really any kind of musical instrument, singing first, chanting, something which raises the vibration of the energy of your environment. And this helps to clear the air of low vibration energies. So I'm going to do another video later on where I go into greater depth about what low vibration energies, how I would define them. But just for the sake of getting started, let's just think of it as energies that are trapped in a form of stasis in our body. And so this might manifest in different ways. For example, stiffness, pain or stiffness that is chronic and which causes irritability. There are a lot of different ways it can manifest, but let's just say that the practice of raising the vibration in the environment helps to soothe those low vibration energies so that we can better approach the task with a sense of openness. Candles are also a very beautiful part of the ritual. They engage our senses through fragrance, as well as through attuning our consciousness to visual subtleties. So there's a lot of reasons which candle, there are also metaphysical meanings for candles as well, which I won't get into in great detail at this time, but they are also a valuable part of the tarot practice. Actually, I would just also want to add that it's helpful to designate a space for the tarot practice. So with all of that in mind, in the next video, I'm going to get into the basics of a tarot deck and how to read them. So stay tuned, like and follow for more. Thank you.